Sometimes it's not thirst that wakes you in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's a feeling, an unnerving silence in the house, a wrong vibration in the air. That's what pulled Serena from her bed. 2:07 a.m. As she walked down the stairs, each footstep echoing in the stillness. She told herself Ryan was just working late, but her intuition, the very thing that had helped her survive as a black woman in a world that wasn't always kind, was screaming that something was wrong. And then she saw him sitting alone in the kitchen. Serena moved closer, about to ask if he was okay, but the words died in her throat because she saw it. A text message, a photo, a name. It was the moment the cold of the floor seemed to seep into her very bones. The truth she saw on that screen was like a virus, and it was about to infect every corner of the life she thought she knew. Our story begins in that exact terrifying moment. Before we step into this nightmare with Serena, take a second. What time is it where you're listening from? Let us know where you're tuning in from. And as you listen to this story, think about this. If you had to rate the emotional storm Serena is about to face on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it? Now let's dive in. The autumn leaves whispered against the windows of their modest suburban home, a two-story haven tucked away in a quiet neighborhood where picket fences and manicured lawns painted a picture of unblemished American bliss. Serena Thompson, at 28, often paused in moments like this to marvel at the life she'd built. Her reflection in the kitchen window caught her eye, her warm, honey-toned skin glowing under the soft overhead light, her long, gently waved hair cascading over her slender shoulders like a dark river. She was Mytha Project, her graphic design sketches scattered across the counter, vibrant colors leaping off the page in defiance of the encroaching night. Design was her passion, a world where she could shape chaos into beauty, much like she'd shaped her family. Down the hall, laughter bubbled from the living room, pulling her lips into a smile. Zoe, their 6-year-old daughter, was a whirlwind of energy, her fair skin flushed pink from play, her soft brown curls bouncing as she chased a stuffed unicorn around the coffee table. Zoe's eyes, wide and brown like Serena's, sparkled with that unfiltered joy only children possess. "Mommy, look! Uni can fly!" she squealed, tossing the toy into the air. Serena's heart swelled. Zoe was the light of their world, a beautiful blend of her parents' features, though her porcelain complexion favored Ryan's side of the family tree. Ryan emerged from the hallway, his tall, athletic frame filling the doorway. At 30, he still carried the boyish charm that had first caught Serena's eye in college. Short brown hair tousled just so, gray-blue eyes crinkling at the corners when he smiled. He scooped Zoe up effortlessly, her giggles echoing as he spun her around. "Who's the best flyer in the house? You or Uni?" he teased, his voice warm and steady, the kind that made Serena feel safe in a world that hadn't always been kind to a black woman, navigating corporate ladders and societal expectations. Their love story was one for the books, or so friends often said, a multiracial couple who defied odds, building a life that screamed triumph. Ryan, the white construction engineer from a blue-collar background, had swept Serena off her feet with his quiet determination. She'd grown up in a tight-knit community where love was fierce but opportunity scarce. Meeting Ryan felt like fate, a bridge across divides. Together, they'd created this home, a sanctuary where differences weren't barriers but bonds. Serena prided herself on their family as a symbol of progress, proof that love could conquer whispers of doubt from outsiders. Dinner that evening was simple but sacred: grilled chicken, fresh salad, and Zoe's favorite mac and cheese. They sat around the oak table, hands linked in a quick grace. "How was your day, babe?" Serena asked, watching Ryan spear a forkful of greens. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there a month ago. "Busy as ever," he replied, flashing that reassuring grin. "This project's a beast, but it'll pay off big. Late meetings again tonight, but hey, future's looking bright." He ruffled Zoe's hair, making her beam. Serena nodded, trusting him implicitly. Ryan had always been the provider, the rock. His job at the firm kept them comfortable, allowing her freelance design work to flourish without pressure. Lately, though, the hours stretched longer. Nights where he'd come home smelling faintly of coffee and stress, collapsing into bed with a mumbled, "I love you." After tucking Zoe in, Serena kissed her forehead, inhaling the sweet scent of lavender shampoo. "Sweet dreams, my little star," she whispered. Zoe's small hand clutched her blanket, her fair cheeks glowing in the nightlight's soft hue. Upstairs, Serena slipped into bed alone, the sheets cool against her lithe form. Ryan had texted he'd be late. Another meeting. She drifted off to the hum of the house settling, content in their perfect picture. But perfection, as Serena would soon learn, was a fragile illusion. It was 2 a.m. when thirst yanked her from sleep. The house was silent, save for the distant tick of the clock. Serena padded downstairs in her silk robe, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. The kitchen light was off, but a faint blue glow emanated from the table. There sat Ryan, his broad shoulders hunched, face illuminated by his phone screen. He didn't hear her approach, lost in whatever held his gaze. His usually composed features were etched with something raw. Fear, exhaustion. Serena's heart skipped. This wasn't like him. She reached out, intending to rest a hand on his shoulder, to whisper, "Can't sleep." But as she leaned closer, her eyes caught the screen. It wasn't an email or a work document. It was a text message, stark and chilling, from a contact labeled Victor. "Time's running out, Ryan. Don't make me come to your house." Below it, a photo. Their house, taken from the street, the front porch light casting an eerie shadow. Serena's breath caught in her throat, the world tilting on its axis. Who was Victor? And why did this feel like the first crack in their flawless facade? The kitchen was a frozen tableau, the faint blue glow of Ryan's phone screen casting jagged shadows across his face. Serena stood rooted behind him, her heart hammering against her ribs, the text from Victor burning into her mind. "Time's running out, Ryan. Don't make me come to your house." The photo of their home, its familiar porch light glowing like a warning, sent a chill snaking down her spine. Her slender fingers, trembling slightly, reached for the glass of water she'd come for, but her grip faltered. The glass slipped, shattering against the hardwood floor with a crash that split the silence. Ryan jolted, his phone clattering to the table as he spun around. His gray-blue eyes, usually steady, flickered with panic before settling into a forced calm. "Serena," he said, his voice low, almost too smooth. "You scared me. Why are you up?" He stood, his tall frame looming in the dim light, and moved to grab a towel, as if the broken glass could erase the moment. Serena's gaze didn't waver from his face, searching for the man she trusted implicitly, the one who'd spun Zoe in the living room just hours ago, who'd promised their future was bright. "Who's Victor?" she asked, her voice sharp but quiet, cutting through the hum of the refrigerator. Her long, wavy hair fell over one shoulder as she crossed her arms, the silk robe tightening against her lithe form. "And why does he have a picture of our house?" Ryan froze mid-step, the towel dangling from his hand. For a heartbeat, he was a deer caught in headlights, his jaw tightening. Then, as if flipping a switch, he smiled. A practiced, disarming grin that didn't reach his eyes. "It's nothing, babe," he said, stepping closer, his tone coaxing. "Victor's just a guy I'm working with, a private investor. He's helping me with a side project, something big for us for Zoe. That text? Just his dumb way of joking around. You know how business guys are." Serena's stomach twisted. She wanted to believe him, to cling to the warmth of their dinner table, to the Ryan who'd built this life with her. But the photo wasn't a joke. It was a threat, cold and deliberate, and his quick dismissal only sharpened her unease. As a black woman who'd navigated boardrooms and subtle slights, she'd learned to trust her instincts when something felt off. And this, Ryan's evasive glance, the tension in his shoulders, was all wrong. "A joke," she pressed, stepping closer, her eyes locking onto his. "A picture of our house at night isn't a joke, Ryan. What's going on?" He sighed, running a hand through his short brown hair, a gesture she knew meant he was buying time. "Look, I didn't tell you because I wanted it to be a surprise," he said, his voice softening, almost pleading. "It's a business venture. Construction consulting, my own thing. Victor's funding it, but he's a bit intense. That's all. I'm handling it." He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers brushing hers, but she pulled back, the memory of that text like a wall between them. Handling it, her voice rose, though she kept it low, mindful of Zoe sleeping upstairs. You're sitting in the dark at 2 a.m., Ryan, looking like the world's about to end. That's not handling it. Her mind raced, piecing together his late nights, the exhaustion etched into his face, the meetings that stretched past midnight. She loved him. God, she did. But love didn't blind her to the cracks now splitting their perfect picture. Ryan's smile faltered, but he doubled down, stepping closer until his familiar scent, coffee and cedar, filled the space. Serena, I swear it's under control. I'm just stressed because I want this to work for us, for Zoe's future, for you to keep designing without worrying about money. His words were honeyed, tailored to her dreams, but they rang hollow against the image of their house on a stranger's phone. She wanted to believe him, to sink into the comfort of his promises. Their life together had been a defiance of odds, a multiracial family thriving in a world quick to judge. But her instincts, honed by years of reading between lines, screamed that this was more than a business deal gone sour. She stepped back, her bare feet crunching on a shard of glass she hadn't noticed, the sting grounding her. Okay, she said finally, her voice steady but cold. But no more secrets, Ryan. I mean it. He nodded, relief flashing across his face, but it didn't reach her heart. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen blinds, painting stripes across the table where Zoe munched on cereal, her fair skin glowing, brown curls bouncing as she chattered about her unicorn's adventures. Serena forced a smile, pouring coffee, her mind still tangled in last night's shadows. Ryan kissed Zoe's forehead before grabbing his jacket. Big day, he said, his grin too bright, too practiced. See you tonight, babe. He pecked Serena's cheek, but she caught the flicker of unease in his eyes as he left. She busied herself with a design project, her fingers flying over her tablet. But Victor's name lingered like a bad taste. The day dragged, each tick of the clock amplifying her doubt. Was Ryan really at a meeting? Or was he hiding something worse? By noon, her phone buzzed, a missed call from an unknown number. Her pulse quickened as she played the voicemail, the voice on the other end cold and deliberate, slicing through the morning's warmth. Mrs. Serena, the voice said, each syllable measured, dripping with menace. Just confirming your husband remembers our Friday meeting. Victor doesn't like his time wasted. Serena's breath caught, her slender frame tensing as she gripped the phone. This wasn't business banter. It was a threat, raw and unmasked, echoing the text from last night. Her eyes darted to Zoe, oblivious as she colored a picture of a rainbow. The house, once a sanctuary, felt like a stage where an unseen danger was closing in. Serena's resolve hardened. She'd trusted Ryan's words last night, but this voice, this Victor, was no investor, and whatever he wanted from her husband, it was coming for their family next. The echo of Victor's chilling voicemail lingered in Serena's ears, a venomous whisper that turned the morning sunlight into a mocking glare. Victor doesn't like his time wasted. The words coiled around her thoughts as she stood in the kitchen, her slender fingers gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles paled against her honey-toned skin. Zoe's cheerful humming from the table, where she scribbled rainbows with crayons, felt like a fragile thread tethering Serena to normalcy. Last night, Ryan's smooth assurances about Victor being a private investor had almost convinced her, but the voicemail's cold menace shattered that fragile trust. Her instincts, sharpened by years of navigating a world that often judged her before knowing her, screamed that her husband was hiding something dangerous. Serena set the phone down, her long, wavy hair brushing her shoulders as she forced a smile for Zoe. "Sweetie, let's get you ready for school," she said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Zoe's fair face lit up, her brown curls bouncing as she gathered her drawings. Serena's heart ached at the sight. Her daughter, their light, was oblivious to the shadow creeping over their home. Ryan's lie, his evasive eyes in the dark kitchen, and now this voicemail formed a jagged puzzle Serena couldn't ignore. She needed answers, and she needed them now. After dropping Zoe at school, Serena returned to the house, the silence oppressive without her daughter's chatter. Ryan was gone, off to another meeting, he'd said, his grin too bright as he'd kissed her goodbye. The memory of his unease fueled her resolve. She headed to his office, a small room off the living room cluttered with blueprints and coffee mugs. Her designer's eye, trained to spot flaws in intricate patterns, scanned the space for clues. She rifled through drawers, finding only pens and receipts until her fingers brushed a hidden stack of papers beneath a false bottom in the desk. Her breath caught as she pulled them out. Overdue credit card statements, unpaid medical bills, and, most damning, a termination letter from Ryan's construction firm, dated 3 months ago. The words blurred as her heart pounded. Ryan had been unemployed for months, yet he left each morning in his jacket, pretending to head to work. Where was he going? How were they paying for groceries, Zoe's school fees, the mortgage? His business venture with Victor now felt like a cruel fiction, a lie woven to mask something far darker. Serena sank to the floor, the papers trembling in her hands. The man she trusted, who'd spun Zoe in the living room and promised a bright future, had built their life on a foundation of deceit. Her mind raced, replaying his late nights, the exhaustion etched into his gray-blue eyes, the photo of their house on Victor's phone. Was Victor a creditor, a partner in some desperate scheme? The questions gnawed at her, each one a splinter in the perfect picture she cherished. She was still sitting there, papers scattered like fallen leaves, when her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe's school. Early dismissal for a teacher meeting. Serena pulled herself together, wiping her eyes and smoothing her silk blouse. She drove to the school, her thoughts a tangle of betrayal and fear. As she waited in the pickup line, Zoe's small figure emerged, backpack bouncing, her fair skin glowing under the autumn sun. Serena forced a smile, waving, but her heart froze when a sleek black car pulled up beside her sedan. A man stepped out, his suit crisp but slightly ill-fitting, as if trying too hard to project power. His pale skin was marred by faint lines around cold gray eyes, and his silver hair was slicked back with calculated precision. He smiled, but it was a predator's grin, revealing a glint of yellow teeth. "Serena," he said, his voice smooth yet chilling, as if he'd known her forever. "And this must be Zoe. Ryan's told me so much about his beautiful family." Serena's blood ran cold. "Victor," she said, her voice low, instinctively stepping in front of Zoe, who clutched her hand. Ryan, pale and rigid, appeared behind the man, his tall frame shrinking under Victor's gaze. "What are you doing here?" Ryan stammered, his eyes darting between Serena and the man. Victor ignored him, crouching to Zoe's level, his smile widening into something unsettling. "Your dad's very ambitious, little one," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "I'm just here to ensure he has enough motivation to succeed." The word hung heavy, a veiled threat that made Serena's skin prickle. Zoe, sensing the tension, pressed closer to her mother, her brown eyes wide with confusion. Serena's grip on Zoe's hand tightened, her resolve hardening like steel. "Stay away from my daughter," she said, her voice a quiet blade. Victor's smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed, assessing her. He straightened, tipping an imaginary hat. "Just a friendly visit," he said, then turned to Ryan. "Friday, Ryan, don't forget." He slid back into his car and drove off, leaving a suffocating silence. In the car, Zoe's small voice broke through. "Who was that man, Mommy?" Serena glanced at her daughter in the rearview mirror, her heart fracturing. "Nobody important, sweetie," she lied, but the words tasted bitter. Victor wasn't nobody. He was a storm cloud gathering over their lives. And Ryan, standing frozen as Victor spoke, hadn't protected them. He'd let this man near their daughter. As they drove home, Serena's mind churned. The bills, the termination letter, Victor's chilling presence. It all pointed to a truth Ryan was hiding. Whatever he'd gotten them into, it was no simple business deal. It was a trap, and Zoe was in its crosshairs. Serena's hands gripped the steering wheel, her designer's precision now focused on one thing: unraveling the lie before it consumed her family. The drive home from Zoe's school was a blur. Victor's predatory grin and his chilling words, enough motivation to succeed, etched into Serena's mind like a scar. His sleek car vanishing down the street had left her trembling, not with fear but with a rising fury. Zoe's small hand in hers, warm and trusting, was a reminder of what was at stake. Ryan's silence as Victor loomed over them, His pale face, drained of the strength she'd once relied on, confirmed her worst fears. Her husband's lies ran deeper than she'd imagined. The termination letter, the unpaid bills, the photo of their house on Victor's phone. They weren't fragments of a puzzle, but pieces of a trap closing around her family. Serena's honey-toned skin prickled as she pulled into their driveway, her resolve hardening. She wouldn't let Victor's shadow touch Zoe again. Inside, the house felt suffocating, its cozy warmth now a lie. Serena tucked Zoe into the living room with her crayons, her daughter's fair cheeks flushed as she drew a unicorn under the soft glow of a lamp. "Stay here, sweetie," Serena said, brushing a curl from Zoe's face, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. She needed answers, and Ryan wasn't here to dodge them. He'd left for another meeting after Victor's appearance, his hurried goodbye laced with guilt. Serena's long, wavy hair swayed as she marched to the kitchen. The stack of damning papers, credit card statements, medical bills, the termination letter, still strewn across the counter where she'd left them. Dinner was a tense affair, Zoe's chatter about school barely piercing Serena's thoughts. When Ryan finally walked in, his broad shoulders slumped, his gray-blue eyes avoiding hers, the air thickened. Serena waited until Zoe was tucked into bed, her soft snores drifting from upstairs, before confronting him. She spread the papers across the kitchen table, their edges curling like accusations. "No more lies, Ryan," she said, her voice low but sharp, cutting through the jazz humming from the radio. "You've been unemployed for 3 months. You're not at work. You're not handling anything. Who is Victor, and what does he have on you?" Ryan's face crumpled, his hands raking through his short brown hair. "Serena, He stopped, swallowing hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I lost my job, okay? The firm downsized and I was cut. I didn't tell you because I was ashamed. I thought I could fix it." His voice cracked, but Serena's gaze didn't soften. "Victor, he's helping me. I borrowed money to start a consulting business. It's a loan, that's all. I'll pay it back." "A loan?" Serena's laugh was bitter, her slender frame taut with disbelief. "He showed up at Zoe's school, Ryan. He threatened us. That's not a loan. It's a leash." She leaned closer, her eyes boring into his. "You're not telling me everything. What's he holding over you?" Ryan's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to the papers, then away. "He's just intense," he muttered. "Business guys are like that. I'm handling it." But his voice wavered, and Serena saw it, the flicker of fear he couldn't hide. She turned away, her heart pounding. Ryan's half-truths were a wall, and she'd have to tear it down herself. The next morning after dropping Zoe at school, Serena sat at her desk, her graphic design tablet untouched. Her designer's precision, honed to spot flaws and patterns, now turned to Victor. She opened her laptop, fingers flying over the keys as she searched his name. The results were sparse at first, LinkedIn profiles, vague business listings, but a deeper dive into public records in obscure forms painted a darker picture. Victor wasn't an investor. He was a loan shark, a vulture in a tailored suit who preyed on the desperate, offering loans with crippling interest rates and seizing assets when payments failed. Court filings mentioned foreclosed homes, ruined businesses, families shattered under his terms. One article called him a Ken Joy Lot Doan Nhan, his silver hair and cold smile a mask for calculated cruelty. Serena's pulse quickened as she found a contact, a former victim named Carla, who'd posted anonymously on a debt relief forum. With a deep breath, she sent a message, her words careful but urgent. Hours later, her phone rang. Carla's voice was hushed, trembling. "Victor destroyed us," she said. "My husband borrowed to save our store. Victor's rates were impossible, 30% interest, weekly payments. When we couldn't pay, he sent men to our house, made threats. He took everything, our savings, our home. He enjoys it, Serena, the power, the fear." Serena's stomach churned, her fingers tightening around the phone. "Did he ever mention my husband, Ryan Thompson?" she asked, her voice barely steady. Carla hesitated, then whispered, "Yes. Years ago, in a bar, he ranted about a Ryan who'd stolen something from him. A woman, maybe. He said he'd make him pay one day. It sounded personal." The words hit like a punch, stealing Serena's breath. Victor's grudge wasn't just financial, it was rooted in some twisted history with Ryan. Her mind raced back to college, to the men who'd pursued her, their egos bruised when she chose Ryan's quiet strength. Was Victor one of them? The thought sent a shiver through her lithe frame tensing. She thanked Carla, her voice tight, and hung up, staring at the laptop screen where Victor's name glared back like a warning. The house was too quiet, the jazz record from last night silent. Serena glanced at Zoe's latest drawing on the fridge, a unicorn under a rainbow, its innocence a stark contrast to the danger circling them. Victor wasn't just a creditor, he was a predator, and Ryan was his prey. But why? What had Ryan done to earn this vendetta? And how far would Victor go to destroy them? Serena's resolve hardened, her designer's eye narrowing on a new pattern. Protect Zoe, expose Victor, and force Ryan to face the truth. Whatever secret bound her husband to this devil, she'd uncover it before it consumed them all. The weight of Carla's words hung heavy in the air, her whispered revelation. He said he'd make him pay one day. It sounded personal, echoing like a warning bell in Serena's mind. She sat at her desk, the laptop screen dimming, Victor's name a digital specter glaring back at her. The cozy suburban house, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage, its walls pressing in with the secrets Ryan refused to share. Her long, wavy hair fell across her shoulders as she leaned back, her honey-toned skin prickling with dread. Victor wasn't just a loan shark, he was a man with a vendetta, and Ryan was at its heart. The image of Victor crouching before Zoe at school, his predatory grin masking a threat, fueled Serena's resolve. She'd trusted Ryan's lies too long. Tonight, she'd tear down the wall between them. The evening draped the house in quiet shadows, the jazz record silent for once. Serena waited, her slender frame tense on the couch, Zoe's unicorn drawing on the coffee table, a painful reminder of what was at stake. Ryan slipped in late, his broad shoulders slumped, his gray-blue eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He froze when he saw her, the stack of bills and the termination letter spread across the table, like evidence in a trial. "Serena," he started, his voice rough, but she cut him off, standing, her eyes blazing. "No more lies, Ryan," she said, her voice a low, controlled blade. "Victor's not an investor. He's a loan shark who ruins lives. He's been stalking Zoe, threatening us. And you've been unemployed for months, pretending everything's fine." She stepped closer, her lithe form radiating fury. "Carla told me he's got a grudge against you, something personal from years ago. What did you do, Ryan? What's he holding over you?" Ryan's face drained of color, his hands raking through his short brown hair, a gesture of desperation she'd seen too often lately. He sank onto the couch, his athletic frame crumpling as if the weight of his secrets had finally broken him. "Serena, I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I didn't want you to know. I was ashamed." Tears welled in his eyes, a sight so foreign it stole her breath. Ryan, the man who'd always been her rock, was unraveling before her. He took a shuddering breath, his words spilling out like a dam breaking. "The firm fired me 3 months ago. Downsizing. I couldn't tell you. You're so strong, Serena, always pushing forward, building your career. I'm supposed to be the provider, the one who keeps us safe, but I failed." His voice broke, his hands clenching into fists. "I met Victor by chance at a bar. He remembered me from college, offered to help. I was desperate. Bills piling up, Zoe's school fees, the mortgage. I took his money, thinking I could start a consulting business, pay him back. But his terms, they're impossible. He's drowning me." Serena's heart twisted, a mix of pity and rage. She wanted to scream, to shake him for endangering their family, but his tears held her back. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice softer but still sharp. "You let him near Zoe. You lied to me, Ryan." He looked up, his eyes red, glistening. "I thought I could fix it. I thought I could be the man you needed." His voice dropped to a whisper, raw and broken. "But there's more. Victor, He's not just after money. It's personal. Back in college, he wanted you, Serena. He was obsessed, charmed by your talent, your beauty. When you chose me, a nobody engineer, over him, he never got over it. He told me at the bar, this loan, this pressure, it's his way of proving I'm not good enough for you, that I can't protect our family. The revelation hit Serena like a physical blow, her breath catching. Victor's grudge wasn't just about Ryan, it was about her choice, their love. The photo of their house, his appearance at Zoe's school, the chilling voicemail, it was all a twisted act of vengeance, laced with a venom she recognized too well. As a black woman, she'd faced men like Victor before, their egos bruised by her refusal to bend, their resentment cloaked in smiles. But this was different, personal, racial, a deliberate attack on the life they'd built. Her mind flashed to college, to a silver-haired man with cold eyes who'd lingered too long at her art shows. His compliments always edged with possessiveness. Victor. You let him use our family to settle a score? She asked, her voice trembling with fury. He's targeting Zoe because of me? Because I chose you? Her hands shook, the betrayal cutting deeper than the lies about the job or the money. Ryan's silence was answer enough, his tears falling freely now. I didn't know it would go this far, he choked out. I thought I could handle him. I'm so sorry, Serena. He reached for her, but she stepped back, her heart fracturing. She loved him, but his shame, his need to play the perfect husband, had invited a devil into their lives. The room spun, the weight of Victor's hatred pressing against her chest. This wasn't just a debt. It was a war on their love, their interracial family, their very existence. Serena's resolve hardened, her designer's eye seeing a new pattern. Victor thought he could break them, but he'd underestimated her. She wouldn't let him win. Not now, not ever. But first, she needed Ryan to fight with her, not against her. The question was, could he? The kitchen was a battlefield of silence, the air thick with the aftershocks of Ryan's confession. Victor's vendetta, rooted in a twisted resentment of Serena's choice, her blackness, their love, hung between them like a guillotine. Serena stood rigid, her slender frame taut, her long, wavy hair framing a face set with fury and resolve. Ryan's tear-streaked cheeks, his gray-blue eyes pleading for forgiveness, offered no comfort. His words, "He's proving I'm not good enough for you," had torn open a wound deeper than the lies about his job or the loan. Victor wasn't just a loan shark. He was a predator wielding their family's existence as a weapon, and Ryan had let him in. Serena's heart pounded, but her mind, sharp as ever, was already mapping a way out. She wouldn't let this man destroy them. The next morning, as dawn bled through the blinds, Serena sat at the kitchen table, her coffee untouched. Zoe's unicorn drawing lay nearby, a fragile reminder of the innocence at stake. Ryan had retreated to the couch last night, his sobs fading into silence. But Serena hadn't slept. Her designer's eye, trained to find order in chaos, churned through Victor's threats. The photo of their house, his appearance at Zoe's school, the voicemail's cold menace. Then her phone buzzed, a new message from an unknown number. Her pulse spiked as she opened it, revealing a photo of Zoe on a playground slide, her fair face bright with laughter. The caption read, "Such a lovely girl. Let's keep her smiling, Ryan." Serena's breath caught, her fingers trembling. Victor was watching, tightening his grip. She stormed into the living room, where Ryan sat, head in hands, his broad frame hunched like a broken statue. "Look at this," she snapped, thrusting the phone at him. His eyes widened, horror washing over his face as he saw Zoe's image. "He's following her, Ryan. Our daughter." Her voice shook, not with fear, but with a mother's wrath. "This ends now. You brought him into our lives, but I'm not letting him take us down." Ryan's hands shook, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Serena. I'm useless. I can't protect you, can't fix this." His despair, raw and suffocating, was a weight she couldn't carry. Toxic masculinity had driven him to this, his need to be the provider, blinding him to the cost. But Serena saw something else in his brokenness, remorse, real and aching. She could leave him, take Zoe and run. But Victor's hatred was aimed at their family, not just Ryan. Running wouldn't stop him. Fighting would. She knelt before him, her eyes fierce. "You lied, Ryan, and it broke me," she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. "But Victor won't win. Not this family. We're in this together now. Tell me everything, every detail about the loan, the terms, everything." Her words were a lifeline, pulling him from despair. Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening, a flicker of the man she'd loved returning. He pulled out a crumpled folder from his bag, loan documents, emails, Victor's demands. For the first time, they were a team, facing the storm head-on. As Ryan explained the crippling interest rates and Victor's veiled threats, Serena's mind worked like a design program, analyzing patterns. She spread the loan contract across the table, her fingers tracing the dense legal text. Her graphic designer's precision caught something, a clause buried in jargon, ambiguous about repayment deadlines. It was a loophole, subtle but real, that Victor might have overlooked in his arrogance. "This," she said, tapping the page, her voice alive with possibility. "This could be our way out." Ryan looked skeptical, his shoulders still slumped. "It's just words, Serena. He's got us trapped." But she shook her head, her wavy hair swaying with determination. "No, Ryan. He's underestimated us. Me. We'll use his own game against him." Her mind raced, plotting. Victor's power came from fear and control, but a mistake in his contract could be his undoing. They needed help, someone who knew the law, someone who could turn this flaw into a weapon. By afternoon, Serena had found a community legal aid center online, its reviews praising a lawyer named Ellen who specialized in predatory lending cases. They drove to the office, Zoe safely at a friend's house, her laughter a distant echo Serena clung to. Ellen, a sharp-eyed woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, listened as Serena laid out everything. The loan, Victor's threats, the photo of Zoe, the personal vendetta tied to their interracial love. Ryan sat beside her, silent but present, his hand brushing hers in a tentative gesture of unity. Ellen's eyes narrowed at the contract's loophole, a slow smile spreading. "This is sloppy," she said. "We can use it, but we'll need more. Proof of his threats, his intent." Serena's heart surged with hope, fragile but fierce. "I'll get it," she said, her voice a vow. Victor thought he could break them, exploiting Ryan's shame and her trust. But he didn't know her strength, her refusal to bow to men who saw her as less. As they left the office, the autumn air sharp against her skin, Serena felt a shift. They weren't just victims anymore. They were fighters. Victor's next move would come, but so would theirs, and it would be precise, calculated, and devastating. The autumn wind bit at Serena's skin as she stepped out of the legal aid center. The contract's loophole, a subtle ambiguity in repayment terms, burning in her mind like a beacon. Ellen's words, "We can use it, but we'll need proof," echoed as a challenge, one Serena was ready to meet. Victor's latest threat, the photo of Zoe on the playground slide with its chilling caption, had ignited a fire in her. Her slender frame, wrapped in a tailored coat, stood resolute beside Ryan, whose tentative handbrush in the office had signaled a fragile alliance. The man who'd crumbled under shame was trying to rise, but Serena knew this fight was hers to lead. Victor had underestimated her, a black woman who'd carved her place in a world quick to dismiss her, and that would be his downfall. Back home, the house felt less like a cage and more like a war room. Zoe was still at her friend's, her absence a quiet ache that sharpened Serena's focus. She spread the loan documents across the kitchen table, her long, wavy hair tucked behind her ears as her designer's eye scanned for leverage. Ryan sat across from her, his gray-blue eyes heavy with guilt, but fixed on her, ready to follow her lead. "We need Victor to slip up," Serena said, her voice steady, cutting through the hum of the refrigerator. "He's arrogant. If I can get him to admit what he's doing, his threats, his motives, we can bury him." Ryan nodded, his broad shoulders tensing. "He's careful, Serena. He never says anything outright incriminating." But Serena's mind was already spinning, her graphic designer's knack for patterns now crafting a trap. Ellen had suggested recording Victor, catching his words as evidence of his illegal loans and personal vendetta. The loophole was their legal foothold, but a confession would be their sword. Serena spent the next day preparing, her fingers trembling not with fear, but with purpose as she tucked a small recorder into her purse. She contacted Victor, her voice calm over the phone, requesting a negotiation to discuss the loan terms. "I want to make this right for my family," she said, layering her words with just enough desperation to stroke his ego. Victor agreed, his tone smug, suggesting a quiet cafe downtown for the meeting. "Friday, 3 p.m., he said. "Don't keep me waiting, Mrs. Thompson." The way he said her name, laced with condescension, made her skin crawl, but she held her composure. This was her gambit. Friday arrived, the cafe a neutral stage bathed in soft light and the clink of coffee cups. Serena arrived early, her lithe form poised in a corner booth, the recorder hidden but active. Victor strode in, his silver hair gleaming, his suit crisp but betraying a slight strain at the seams, as if his facade of power was fraying. His cold gray eyes locked onto her, his smile a thin veneer over malice. "Serena," he said, sliding into the booth, "I'm surprised Ryan sent you. Trouble in paradise?" She swallowed her disgust, leaning forward, her voice measured. "Ryan's trying, but we're struggling. I want to know exactly what you expect from us." Her words were a lure, inviting his arrogance to surface. Victor chuckled, leaning back, his yellowed teeth glinting. "Expect? I expect payment. Your husband thought he could play entrepreneur, but he's out of his depth. My terms are clear. Pay, or I take what's owed." Serena's pulse quickened, but she kept her face neutral, guiding the conversation like a design project. "Take what's owed?" she asked, tilting her head. "You've been watching our daughter, Victor, sending photos. That's not about money." His smile faltered for a split second, a crack in his armor. "Just motivation," he said, his voice smooth but edged. "Ryan needs to remember what's at stake." She pressed further, her questions sharp yet subtle. "This feels personal. You knew Ryan in college, didn't you? Why him? Why us?" Victor's eyes narrowed, but his ego betrayed him. "Ryan always thought he was better than me," he said, his voice low, venomous. "Taking what I wanted, parading his perfect family. A man like him, with you?" His sneer dripped with disdain, the racial undertone unmistakable. "I'm just balancing the scales. He can't protect you, Serena. I'm proving it." Her heart pounded, the recorder capturing every word. His admission of usury, extortion, and the racist vendetta driving him. She kept her voice steady, feigning fear. "So you'll ruin us to prove a point?" Victor leaned closer, his smile predatory. "I get what I want, one way or another. Pay up or I'll take more than money." The threat hung heavy, but Serena had what she needed. She ended the meeting with a promise to talk to Ryan, her calm facade hiding the triumph coursing through her. Back home, she played the recording for Ryan and Ellen, Victor's voice damning him with every syllable. Ellen's eyes lit up. "This is gold," she said. "Combined with the contract's loophole, we've got him." She drafted a letter to Victor, delivered that evening, cancel the debt and disappear, or face charges for predatory lending, blackmail, and hate crimes. The recording is with us and the authorities. As the letter went out, Serena stood in the kitchen, Ryan beside her, his hand finally steady as it held hers. Victor's arrogance had been his undoing, but the fight wasn't over. Serena knew he'd react. Whether with retreat or retaliation, she couldn't predict. But for the first time, she felt the tide turning, her strength outmatching his malice. The kitchen was bathed in the soft glow of evening, the tension of weeks past lingering like a fading echo. Serena stood at the counter, her slender fingers clutching a mug of chamomile tea, its steam curling upward as she stared at the fridge, where Zoe's unicorn drawing still hung. Victor's recorded confession, his venomous admission of usury, blackmail, and racist vendetta, had been the blade that severed his hold over their family. Ellen's letter, sent just days ago, had laid out the ultimatum with surgical precision. Cancel the debt and vanish, or face criminal charges. The silence since then was deafening, a fragile victory that left Serena wary. Victor's arrogance had crumbled, outmaneuvered by the woman he'd underestimated. But the scars he'd left on her family ran deep. Her long, wavy hair brushed her shoulders as she turned to Ryan, who sat at the table, his gray-blue eyes no longer dodging hers. For the first time in months, they were a team. But trust, once shattered, was slow to mend. Confirmation came that morning. A curt email from Victor's lawyer, stating the debt was nullified, no further contact permitted. Serena had exhaled, her lithe frame sagging with relief, but the financial wreckage remained. Unpaid bills, a drained savings account, the reality of Ryan's unemployment. Victor was gone, his predatory shadow lifted, but the fight to rebuild was just beginning. Ryan had enrolled in counseling, confronting the toxic masculinity that had driven him to hide his failures, to let Victor's loan become a noose. He'd taken a job at a local hardware store, a humbler role than his engineering days, but his steady hands stocking shelves signaled a man trying to rise from his mistakes. Serena watched him now, his broad shoulders less hunched, his face softer as he sketched a plan for their budget on a notepad. "I know it's not much," he said, his voice tentative but honest, "but it's a start. I'm done hiding, Serena, I swear." She nodded, her heart caught between love and caution. His lies had nearly cost them everything. Zoe's safety, their home, their bond. But his remorse was real, etched in every effort to make amends. She wanted to believe in him, in them, but time would be the true test. Zoe's return from her friend's house brought light back to the house. Her fair skin glowed as she bounded into the kitchen, brown curls bouncing, clutching a new drawing of a rainbow-streaked unicorn. "Mommy, Daddy, look!" she chirped, her brown eyes sparkling. Serena knelt, pulling her into a hug, inhaling the lavender scent of her shampoo. Zoe's innocence had been the fire that fueled Serena's fight, and now protecting it meant healing the fractures Victor had exploited. "It's beautiful, sweetie," Serena said, her voice thick. Ryan joined them, his calloused hand ruffling Zoe's hair, and for a moment they were whole again. Weeks turned to months, the autumn chill giving way to winter's bite. The family moved to a smaller apartment, a practical choice to ease their financial strain. The new space was modest, its walls bare, but for Zoe's growing collection of drawings, each one a testament to her resilience. Serena threw herself into her graphic design work, her talent securing new clients, her income a lifeline as Ryan rebuilt his confidence. Therapy sessions became a ritual, Ryan attending solo to untangle his shame, Serena joining couples counseling to navigate the trust she was slowly piecing back together. Some nights, she'd catch Ryan staring at her, his eyes heavy with gratitude and regret. "I don't deserve you," he'd whisper, and she'd squeeze his hand, not ready to absolve but willing to try. One crisp February afternoon, they gathered in the apartment's tiny backyard, a patch of frost-dusted grass where Zoe had begged to plant a garden. Serena knelt beside her, their breath clouding in the cold as they dug holes for tulip bulbs. Zoe's giggles filled the air, her fair cheeks pink as she handed Ryan a trowel, dirt smudging his jeans. He laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound Serena hadn't heard in months. She watched him, dirt-streaked and smiling, and felt a warmth she thought she'd lost. Their family wasn't the perfect picture she'd once clung to, polished and flawless. It was real now, scarred but stronger, built on truth instead of illusions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet, Serena stood, brushing soil from her hands. Zoe ran to her, wrapping small arms around her waist, and Ryan joined them, his arms circling them both. The moment was simple, unscripted, but it held a quiet power. Victor's hatred had aimed to tear them apart, exploiting Ryan's shame and Serena's trust. But they'd fought back, together. The wounds remained, but so did their love, a force that had outlasted lies and vengeance. Serena's gaze drifted to the bulbs they'd planted, buried but poised to bloom come spring. Like their family, they'd weathered a storm, their roots deep despite the chaos. Forgiveness wasn't easy, and the road ahead held challenges, bills to pay, trust to rebuild. But Serena knew they were stronger for it. Their love, imperfect and battle-tested, was a defiance of the hatred that had tried to break them. As Zoe's laughter rang out, Serena felt a new dawn breaking, not just for her family, but for the woman she'd become, a warrior who'd faced the truth and won. Thank you for joining Serena, Ryan, and Zoe on their journey through betrayal, resilience, and redemption. Their story reminds us that love and truth can triumph over lies and hatred, but it's a path paved with courage. What did you think of their fight? How would you face a storm like theirs? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Until next time, stay strong and keep seeking the truth.